So I want to start just with some basic definitions, about human rights. It's always good to start with the fundamentals and build from there. So what are human rights? So what's a human right? A human is a member of the Homo sapiens species, a man, woman, or child, or person. Everyone knows that. And what are rights? Rights are things to which you are entitled or allowed, freedoms that are guaranteed. So human rights, therefore, are the rights you have simply because you are human. Pretty basic, but sometimes it's always good to fully understand the basics. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is the history of human rights, right? Again, just establishing the sort of the fundamentals. So basically, originally, long time ago, there were no rights. The only reason people had rights is because they belonged to a special group, or they belonged to a special family, or they were part of some, organization which gave them some rights. But there were not equal rights, and only the people who were part of these groups or these circles, let's say, had these rights. Then in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great, after conquering the city of Babylon, did something which was pretty incredible. He freed all the slaves and he told them that they could return home. And he also declared that people had the right to choose their own religion. So human rights kind of were born, right, at that point. In 1215, the Magna Carta was signed and gave people new rights and made the king subject to the law. Then in 1628, the Petition of Rights set out the rights of the people. And then in 1776, the United States Declaration of Independence was signed. Then in 1789, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. And then 1948, the most recent document, and the document that we promote and all of the materials for Youth for Human Rights International are based on, is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which contains all the 30 rights that every citizen or every person in this world is entitled to. A majority of the countries, I believe over 100 countries, are signed on to this Declaration of Human Rights. And this came about as a result of World War II. Shortly after World War II, this document was signed. So the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, again, came into being in 1945. It was led by Eleanor Roosevelt, who was part of a committee. And this document declares that the rights that everyone has in the entire world, or should have in the entire world. And again, like I said, there are over 100, there are about 192 member states of the UN who have all signed on to this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, so the first right that we want to talk about today is freedom of expression. And at this point, I want to introduce our very, very special guest. Her name is Sophia Angelica. She's from New York with an Argentine heritage. Sophia Angelica found her passion as a singer, songwriter, performer, and creative writer at the early age of 7. At the age of 13, she appeared in her first television show, Good Day New York, on Fox. Sophia combined her vocal talents together with her acting ability as the voice of the singing rabbit for Dora the Explorer on Nickelodeon. Most notably, Sophia has performed at many cause-related events at the United Nations and other major venues, and is constantly rebooked to perform at annual events, award shows, and festivals. Most recently, she received the HOLA, Hispanic Organization of Latin Actors, Elizabeth Pina Breakthrough Artist Award, and the prestigious Presidential Volunteer Service Award in April of 2019 in Washington, D.C. for her work with human rights. Along with the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, she received letters of achievement and recognition from Governor Cuomo, Governor Murphy of New Jersey, the state legislature of New Jersey, and many other political leaders. Sophia continues to write and release singles and is currently working on an original pop album. So with that, I'll turn this over to Sophia. And Sophia, I'm going to make you the presenter. Just give me 1 second to do that. Okay, Sophia, you're now the presenter. And Sophia, you're muted.
Sorry, had a technical difficulty. It kept asking me to open a system preference. All right. Hi, everyone. So, as Hassar really nicely presented, I'm Sophia Angelica. So I'm going to start out by the most basic expression of this human right, which is music. So I'm going to sing just about half for like a minute and a half of a song that I wrote called Speak Up, which is actually inspired by human rights and that I wrote many years ago for human rights. So I'm just going to do an a cappella here. All right. Why do people fail to understand? Giving pain instead of helping hands. Harm is not the answer to our prayers. Don't take away the rights that we all share. So much hate existing in the world. People hurt in ways they don't deserve. With one word, a crowd will scream and shout. With one smile, a crowd will shut you out. Wondering if you ever will be found. Forget the negativity, bring back the positivity. How long can we last like this? Don't give in to the haters, because all they do is hate us. What kind of world do we live in? Replace every hateful thought with love. Instead of staying down, get up. Don't let them take away your voice. Speak up. Every chance you get to say enough. Take it and make everyone fall in love. Fight back. Speak up, speak up, speak up. Okay.
Wow, amazing. Thank you. That was beautiful and powerful.
That's a little section of that song just to kind of give a little feeling to what I feel freedom of expression means. First of all, I feel nothing is possible without expressing yourself. Family, relationships, professional life, humanity, they're all based off expression. And there are so many ways to express yourself, like my ways through music, like I just did, or through writing or through the arts. Others focus on the visual arts, like I know Youth for Human Rights DC is having an art contest to educate about human rights, which is amazing. But it's the energy between people, between an audience member and an artist. But expression can also simply mean a conversation, like the one we're having right now, or a moment of silence because of those that we've lost during COVID. These are just small examples of expression, and I believe this human right branches off into every other one because of it. It has to do with discrimination, with bullying, which is the way people express themselves towards each other, towards others. And with the ones that we're about to discuss, which is the right to public assembly and the right to democracy. Your choices, your decisions within the public sphere are a form of expression of what you believe in and who you are. Just to me, that means the arts and expressing myself through music.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I think the song that you sang says it all. Very powerful and beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was the freedom of expression. So the next right that we wanted to talk about, let me just click on this so the page turns, is the right to public assembly. Sophia touched on that as well. And freedom of assembly ensures people can gather and meet both publicly and privately. And assemblies can be important platforms to advocate for change and for people to raise awareness about issues that matter to them, whether it's human rights, socioeconomic rights, or any other issues. As we've seen lately, right, there's a lot of, this right is being exercised quite a bit throughout the US and throughout the world, whatever the various causes are. So this is a really key right that we have, that we should exercise, We can use this as a platform to discuss issues that are important to us, are important to the groups that we belong to, important to the nation that we belong to, important to the religion we belong to. So it's really an important sort of platform that can be utilized. So with that, Sophia, is there anything you want to add on this particular right?
Yeah, I mean, I had researched and created my senior thesis about creative activism and how music can be a vehicle to drive social change. And I found that participatory culture, people joining forces or just getting together, whether it's simply to listen to music or to actively promote change, is really something that makes a difference. It's like, for example, I researched the scientific background behind that. And, when everyone gets together, there's this feeling of, there's chemical called oxytocin, which is released within our bodies, and that causes people to bond. It creates a sense of belonging in that participatory space. So public assembly to me means the right to participate in society and to create community, to become a part of something, which is what I had when I joined Youth for Human Rights International many years ago, and that I still have now.
Great, thank you. Excellent. So the next right that we want to talk about, and just so everyone knows, there will be a Q&A session towards the end, so I'm sure that some of you have questions, and we will definitely get to those and answer those. So the next right, and the last right that we're going to talk about this evening, is the right to democracy. Again, also a very critical right? We all have the right to take part in the government of our country. Every grown-up should be allowed to choose their own leaders. We're fortunate in this country to have this right exercised very easily. It's not so easy in other parts of the world. It's not so easy to just, when you turn 18 or become an adult, to go out and vote. That's not always the case throughout the planet. So we are very lucky to exercise this right. And obviously we want to help make sure that this right can be exercised throughout the world. And Youth for Human Rights International, the way we advocate for human rights, we bring about awareness, and we make sure that people are aware of what their rights are, because knowledge is power. There are great organizations that are promoting human rights, like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. They do excellent work. However, the difference between us and them is they help once a violation's occurred. We go in before a violation's occurred, bring about the awareness to stop that violation from occurring in the first place. So that's a key difference between Youth for Human Rights and other organizations. And of course, they're all excellent. They're all doing amazing work, and they're all doing work that's very much needed. So with that, Sophia, I wanted to see if you have any comments on the right to democracy.
Sure. So just like the right to public assembly is a participation in society, it's also a participation in politics, which is the right to democracy. Everyone should have the right to make their own decisions about where they live and, what environment they have to be a part of. And, people in many countries fight for this right, and every other right we've discussed so far. People in Puerto Rico fought for a change in their government, and they're still fighting for their voices to be heard. People who are discriminated against fight for their voices to be heard. It's this never-ending battle that all goes back to freedom of expression. If we're able to express ourselves, we are able to be a part of a decision or a part of a change, and to fight for what we believe in simply because we believe in it. So that's democracy to me.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Okay, I'm going back to my presentation. Sorry, I'm clicking back and forth here. So what is the purpose, of Youth for Human Rights International and then Youth for Human Rights DC? Our purpose is to educate the community and our leaders about their 30 human rights, official 30 human rights, because it's all based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And as I was stating earlier, the differential, or the key differential between our organization and other organizations, is we're actually trying to bring about awareness, bring about education, bring about knowledge, so we can prevent a human right violation occurring in the first place, because knowledge is power. We all know that once people are aware of something, then they're cognizant of their surroundings, they're cognizant of the people around them to ensure that these types of violations don't occur. Especially because youth is in our name, we definitely educate the youth. We've done many seminars at local schools, elementary schools, and high schools, and other types of organizations as well, where we bring about this awareness of human rights using the materials we have again at youthforhumanrights.org. Everything that you've seen in this PowerPoint presentation can be found at youthforhumanrights.org. All of the material was extracted from that website. And I did that on purpose because it gives you sort of a flavor of what's available at that particular website, along with 30 videos. So each human right has been converted into a video, very powerful video. And these are some of the tools that we use at local schools when we do seminars. So again, I thank you. We're going to start our Q&A session, but I thank you for attending our webinar. And I look forward to all of you attending our future webinars as well. And so with that, I'm going to kind of start a Q&A session. And then I'm going to ask, Sophia, I wanted to ask you some questions, if that's okay with you. And then we will also open it up to anyone else that has questions. So Sophia, my first question to you is, why are human rights most important to you as an artist?
Well, I've always said that people often see human rights as something fully political, which it definitely is, and it can be. But if you turn it around, just like the definition, it simply is the right to be human. So as a human being, as I said before, expression is everything. And performing, writing, sharing my art with the world is expressing my human rights, particularly freedom of expression. If we didn't have human rights, we may not have art. And personally, I don't know where I'd be or who I'd be without having combined my beliefs of human rights and music together.
Great, excellent. Does freedom of expression in the arts help promote democracy?
Well, I've always believed in the power of art to spread a message and cause change, whether it's educating about a human right, like Youth for Human Rights does, or a social cause, or inspiring one person to begin the process of change in an entire country. Sometimes it only takes that one person to begin that chain reaction. And something I touched on in my thesis is affect theory, which is simply the ability for something to affect you emotionally and cause you to go towards action. And that goes back to the idea that music, or the arts in general, have the ability to affect us because it has this ingrained involvement in human nature because of its innateness within ourselves. And if we can promote action through the arts, through an element that affects our beings in such a natural way, then we can promote political change, we can promote democracy, and the idea that we can get involved in our own political spheres. And art in a social space of political assembly is also part of that. It all intertwines in similar ways, but it all begins with that one spark of expression, I believe.
Great, thank you. Do you think art has the power to change public policy or opinion?
Just like I said before as well, I think with the influence of art in the way that I've been describing it and that I've seen it, anything's possible. With the way music, my medium at least, can have the power to make a single change in one life or inspire one person to change their opinions, it can most definitely have the power to change public policy or opinion. Art gets to us in ways that words or speech can't always succeed in doing. It's almost this spiritual experience. Like if asking only one person if they'd rather listen to a speech or listen to a song, I bet that at least like 98% would say a song, because it's something we just enjoy naturally. If we can combine something we enjoy with a message, then I feel people are more inclined to listen or to feel something based off of what they are listening to or experiencing. If it's a group of kids, which is more my experience, I work with kids, like even more so, And there are examples across the centuries of music and the arts being used for change, for spreading a message, which eventually led to change in public policy, from civil rights to present global concerts to help those in need. Even the virtual ones we're a part of now, like there was the Global Citizen Festival, or there's one called the Keep 6 Feet Festival, which I was actually a part of only a week ago, and they were raising money and helping educate about musicians in need. So I feel anything's possible with something that's so natural to us, which is just expressing ourselves through the arts.
Great, thank you. So I definitely have more questions for you, but I want to give the rest of the audience a chance to ask any questions that they may have, and I definitely have some more questions for you. So again, thank you for all the participants who are here this evening. I want to open up the floor to questions that you may have. So anyone else, is there a question that you'd like to ask? You'll have to, in case you want to ask a question, you'll have to unmute yourself because everyone's muted at the moment. Okay, so there's a question that came in. How does the right to democracy relate to foreigners in a country? They cannot vote, but they are still human. How does this work? How can I exercise the right in the US, for example? That's a really, really good question, right? Excellent question. So we have to follow, right? We have to follow the laws of the land, right? So in the US, currently the law of the land is that you have to be a citizen in order to vote. So while you may feel like that you can't exercise your right currently because you're not a citizen and you can't vote, there is a path, right? There are paths for you to become a citizen, so you can then exercise your right. But obviously the laws of the land are the laws of the land, and we have to respect those laws. Anyone else with a question? Okay, and we'll come back to the audience and see if there's more questions. So Sophia, I have another question for you. How have you used your artistic talents to forward peace and human rights?
Well, ever since I was little, I started writing music that spread some sort of message, whether it be because of bullying or life in general. It just kind of came to me naturally. The first song I wrote when I was 10 was called That's Just the Way Life Is, which is hilarious for a 10-year-old, but it seems to be that's always been kind of ingrained in me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet. All I knew was that I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, but which is still true. But then I got involved with the UN when I was 13, and finally Youth for Human Rights when I was 15. And I realized how impactful one song can be to share peace or to create an energy in the room and to educate about a topic. I saw people doing something like that, and I instantly got inspired to do the same. So I wrote songs about human rights. I shared them with as many people as possible, performed them in public spaces, because I feel that makes a difference. You know, it's the same idea as public assembly. And I didn't truly realize how big of a difference it really made until I went to Taiwan, which I did a university tour there with Youth for Human Rights Taiwan. And every day I would perform and speak somewhere new and realize that the students listened more to my music than my speech, which was 40 minutes long. Even if we speak different languages, they still responded more to the music than to the speech. And I had a translator with the speech, not with the music. One student told me they no longer wanted to commit suicide, which connects to the human right of responsibility. Others realized the possibilities they have in their lives to reach their dreams. I've spoken of discrimination and bullying in my songs, advocated against it because as a Latina, I feel the effects of this social issue. And people understood the ramifications of these concepts. And it was all because of music. So,
Wow.
and also, like, my brother, for example, now, he is in current need of a kidney transplant. And the only way I could think of spreading the word, spreading the message, getting it out there, seeing who I might inspire to donate a kidney to my brother, it was just through music. And it's already created a music campaign about this, and it's spreading the word and spreading awareness about kidney donation in general, not even just my brother's cause. So it really, music has always been like a tool for education for me in a way, as well as something that's enjoyable, something that I love and that I'm passionate about. And of course, speaking of my own experiences and my own stories, but when I really need to, I know like music's there for me to actually help get the word out there for anything that's important to me.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting you brought up the right to assembly, kind of leads into my next question. So the right to public assembly for most artists is being violated right now. No concerts, theater, performances, gallery shows. How is this affecting the music community, and what will the ramifications be?
God, well, right now with everything going on, it's been the most difficult time to actually come together and assemble and make decisions and make change through public assembly. For artists, being in the room performing live, that's where our excitement, our livelihood comes from. There are grants and financial aid from the government for artists, but artists are suffering financially. Businesses are suffering financially. The music industry may never be the same, as we have to find new ways of doing things, of organizing live events. You know, people have to be 6 feet apart, of bringing people together in different ways. But like I said before, artists are finding ways to do things. We are recording from home, creating from home, performing on live platforms from home, live Facebook, YouTube, using every technological device possible. You know, people in Italy were singing from balconies, or even just singing outside. I just did a live gig in an outside space of a restaurant. Of course, it limits the ways we can get ourselves out there, because, you know, half of it is technology, but the other half is performing live. But at the same time, it opens up our minds to other possibilities. You know, it inspires us to get creative, to think outside the box. And I think more art is being created now more than ever, especially with the overwhelming amount of emotions going around. You know, anti-discrimination protests are happening all over the country right now. They're making their voices heard, and you know, so can we. More than anything, I feel that people are now creating more art that connects us also, that helps each other, that inspires us, even just raising funds through music during this global pandemic, because people are finding connection and feeling in every way possible now. That's what people are longing for. So like, what's a better way than through art to actually get to that place?
Yeah, that's perfect segue into my last question for you. So during these very turbulent times, what role do artists play in protecting human rights and uplifting society?
Well, I feel that all comes down to a way of life, or a way of thinking about life. Just like artists can inspire others, I feel that artists can inspire artists. You know, rather than being in competition with each other, if artists can create a meaningful, positive community, you know, come together and help each other, then that's one step towards a purpose in our art. You know, one that uplifts and supports the world rather than bring us down. You know, because we may be artists, but at the core of it, we're human beings, you know. We all have human nature in common. And as long as we understand and we realize that, you know, coming together as human beings is already an education about human rights. And that within itself inspires art, you know, sharing what's meaningful to us, even our own emotional experiences and paths. You know, sharing our stories, I feel that's what's most meaningful. And I feel we could only do that when we feel that we can be a community and that we can work together on things. So I feel that's the way we can all actually work together to create a more meaningful space for art, if that makes sense.
Yep, very inspirational. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. I really appreciate the time you took to be part of this webinar. So again, I want to open up the floor to any other questions that anyone else has. Please don't be shy, unmute your microphone and ask away any question that you like about, whether it has to do with the three human rights that we covered this evening, whether it's about the incredible things that Sophia spoke about, anything you want to ask, please feel free to do so.
I just got a question to
Sure.
me privately.
Yeah.
Do you ever run into pushback against your message? You promote human rights, which is great, and you use the freedom of expression. Now, my question is, how can you defend this right if it is not agreed with or maybe pushed against? And also, if those rights are criticized in using those rights, how can you defend these rights or still come through to be able to use those rights? I hope you can understand my question. Yes, I understand it. I feel that with everything in life, we're always going to get pushback. Like, not everyone is always going to agree with you. I feel like the most that we can do is try to inspire and try to share our message in a peaceful way. You know, if someone is disagreeing with you, I feel like the wrong way would be to fight back in like a like disagreeable kind of way. So I feel like the only thing we can do is share it as much as possible peacefully. And like I said, through art, like I feel like people are more inclined to listen than if someone is standing there being like, you should believe in this, you know? It's like in art, it feels more like a suggestion rather than a you have to believe in this. So that's what makes it a little more accessible and kind of a happier medium to be able to actually get through to people. But I don't feel like everyone is always going to agree with you. There's always going to be pushback or someone who has a completely different opinion or mindset. Sometimes being in that public space and participating in something that helps in actually getting someone to feel like they're a part of that message, and that could eventually cause a change in opinion. But it's never instant either, so it's just a matter of continuing to put it out there, and maybe one day that person will change their mind.
Great. Any other questions? Well, again, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening in our summer series of webinars going over 30 human rights, 3 human rights every week. Next Thursday at 7:30 p.m., we'll be doing another webinar to go over 3 more human rights. I hope everyone who's here this evening will join us, and look forward to your questions, look forward to your comments. Again, all the materials that we talked about tonight can be found at youthforhumanrights.org. Incredible array of material there, both audiovisual material. You can also do a free human rights course at the website. You can sign up for it at the website as well. So it's pretty resourceful. Hope everyone visits. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. And I hope everyone has a great weekend coming up. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Azar, for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.